What is your Tinder horror story? It ended up being a double date with his mum and her OkCupid date. He told me that he and his mum were a package deal. I was mortified and there was no second date. That reminds me of a story from high school, although not a dating story. Knew this kid from school. His dad was an Episcopal preacher and he and his kid were huge Star Wars fans, but never had the chance to see it on a big TV. At the time, the average TV was like 27 inches and this TV was like 50. Anyhow, halfway through the movie, it's nighttime and pitch black out in a rural area. The kid tells me his dad would love to see this movie on the big TV. He then tells me his dad has been waiting outside the house in his car, in the dark, the whole time, on the off chance the kid could work it into the conversation and the dad could come inside and watch the movie. Cue me, waving at this car in the pitch black for this guy, in the full black suit with white collar, preacher to come inside and watch the rest of the movie with us, which is half over by now. My parents, watching this guy walk inside in the middle of the night, looking horrified and wondering what the frick is happening. I went on a Tinder date a couple months ago on a Sunday afternoon. Met up with the guy around 3. He had a really good energy and was funny and complimentary. The place we wanted to go had a long line, so we went to another restaurant on the water for a drink and appetizers. He started slamming down Mai Tais. I had 1. He had 3. They were strong. Like, I was tipsy borderline drunk off of 1. The bar had a 2 Mai Tai per person limit, but he found another bartender to get his 3rd. He got drunker and started telling me he loved me, joking at first, but getting increasingly serious. As we left he asked me to marry him. I kind of laughed it off, and was like maybe we'd take it slow, we just met each other. He got so mad he stormed off and left me on a street corner. Then as soon as he got home, it was 5 PM. He started texting me come over, and I miss you. He was 43. What the frick? I think maybe you dated my ex. I'm so sorry. He told me he's not gay, but he prefers to have sex with men and prefers to be on the bottom. I asked if he was bi and he said no, I'm straight, I just like getting fricked in the ass. And then he asked me if he could pee in my butt cause he's always wanted to try it, but he won't top guys so he can't find out how it feels. He's the head football coach of a private college in my state and that made it even weirder somehow. A chick said she was having a work party at her house and I should come over. It's Bob, so I bought a 6-pack for myself. Went to her place and noticed more than half of the people were younger, 17-18, while I was 21 and the girl was also 21. Then they gathered everyone in the living room and proceed to talk about the job. Turns out it was one of those pyramid scheme recruiting gatherings. I just sat there drinking my beer, only one drinking, for 2 hours, because I thought it was rude to leave, because they were telling sob stories and saying how much this job had helped them. Sat there listening to some head of the group guy saying how we can make millions in a short amount of time. Saying bullet like you see my BMW 3 Series out front. That's a company car that you can drive around in, if you do what we do. It was sad, because they were trapping low-income teens that are deciding not to go to college and to join them. After the pitch, I pretty much had enough and was preparing to leave. Then the girl came up to me and asked what I thought and I just said it's not for me and I'm leaving. She asked if I wanted to take my beer and I said they needed it more than I did. 2 or 3 weeks later she sent me a text, unfortunately we exchanged numbers, asking if the head of the group guy can call me and ask me questions on why I'm not signing up and how I thought the group session went. I didn't reply, but sure enough the dude called me and I politely said it's not for me, but he kept pushing. Finally I had to tell him to frick off, and that was the end of that. Never went to work parties for a Tinder date again. It was a completed show and if it wasn't for the beer I brought or the Tinder date's dog, I would have just left. Looking back on it, during the pitch, the head of the group guy said at one point if you're not interested in making $1 million, you can just leave, no one's stopping you. I really wish I stood up, chugged my beer and said frick this it, you guys are all stupid and no one should be joining, you will ruin your lives and walk out. But that's just a daydream I have in the shower. Applause. Run from that MLM it, always. The pitches always use the same inspirational stories with an entry to mid-tier German luxury car parked out front. Not fooling anyone. So I met this girl on Tinder and went for a lunch date. We had a pretty good connection, so we decided to have dinner as well. After having a few drinks, one thing led to another and ended up back at my place. We hooked up and went to sleep. Middle of the night I wake up. She's intensely staring at me while she's crouched behind the bed. I asked her if everything is alright. She said yes and got back into bed. I thought little creepy, but probably nothing to worry about. She lays down to cuddle with me and she's wet. At the time, I was like, damn, I must just be a stallion. Fast forward to the morning, she's gone and there's a wet puddle beside the bed. She peed on my floor. I still don't understand it. I had a bathroom, but maybe she just got lost and couldn't hold it. I did not hear from her again. Sleepwalking? This exact thing happened to me once. It was a girl I had been dating for a while. We had a good amount to drink that night. I saw the whole thing happen because she woke me up getting out of bed. She just leaned forward on the bed and let fly. I got her back into bed and cleaned up before going back to sleep myself, and she remembered none of it the next morning. Over the next couple of years I saw her sleepwalk a handful of times. Luckily no other episode required cleaning up bodily fluids. Oh my god, I had a friend do something like that when she and another friend came to my new place in Seattle and we went out for drinks. I got tired so I went home and they got back much later. I got up during the night and both were passed out on the bathroom floor, one around the toilet and the other next to my roommate's cat's litter box. When I woke up, my roommate told me my friend pooped and peed in the kitchen during the night. My friend had literally peed in the recycling box and pinched a loaf right next to it. I cleaned up the pee, but I insisted she clean up the turd, lol. She had no knowledge of doing it, because she drunk sleepwalked. I matched with a girl and sent a lot of messages. Later that night we talked on the phone and the conversation was going really well, so I asked to go out the next night. She agreed and then 5 minutes later she tells me that needs to tell me something. She tells me that she's permanently in a wheelchair. So I'm either an asshole if I back out now or an asshole if I led her on. I figure why not? It's just a date and it could be a fun time still. We talk more that night and go to bed. The next morning she calls me early and tells me she's doing something crazy. She won't tell me what, but she said she'll show me later. A few hours goes by and she calls me back and tells me she's going to send me a pic of what she did. I check my messages and I see a picture of her wrist with my name now tattooed on it. We end the call and I immediately tell my friends about this crazy girl. Later that night I'm driving to her place cause I figure she can be committed enough to tattoo my name on her. I should be committed enough to go on this date. Plus I have to know it's real. I'm almost at her place and I realize that my car may not accommodate her wheelchair and I know she drives, so I ask if she can drive us. I'm walking in the parking lot and she drives up and I get in the car. Now I had figured she had a handicapped enabled car. Nope. Turns out she just uses 2 crutches to drive, one on the gas and one on the brake. I don't like this as we're driving on the Southern California freeways in traffic. We go eat and she gets a phone call from her daughter. Turns out she left her 10 years old daughter at home alone and she's scared. I'm like, hey, we can go. But she's like, no, it's okay, I gave her something to make her sleep, she'll be asleep soon. So we finish up and I was gonna take her to see a movie, but the kid thing was too much, so we head home and my fingers are already crossed that we make it when she turns to me while driving and says, wow, I'm kinda drunk. In my head I'm like, 1 drink is all you had. But I ask if I can drive and she says no, she's gonna get in the fast lane and uses her crutch to hit the gas. I say my last prayers, but we made it back to her place. So I wheeled her back to her door, said goodbye and lived. Tattoo was real though. What the hell? This is the story that made me comment, but do you guys have no survivor instinct? Talked to him for 2 weeks before we went out and no red flags, so we ended up going out to dinner. I said I hadn't been out in a while because I was trying to save money for a washer and dryer. He told me instead of saving for that I should save for a boob job. I didn't even know how to reply, so he followed up with, no, it's not a bad thing. My sister and mum both had small tits and got boob jobs and they look amazing. This is all before the waitress even brought our drinks. I just got up and left. Maybe he should just go sleep with his mother and sister then. Maybe he already did. First date. She wanted me to get into a bar fight with the perfectly friendly guy who'd bought us a round of shots that night. Why? Because she found out he was a Scorpio. Astrology chicks are crazy. Chatted with this girl for about 2 weeks. Every conversation went well and eventually I got her number and she started sharing nudes and speaking dirty. Late on evening after a stressful work day she talks me into driving an hour to come get coffee with her. She spends the next hour and a half non-stop talking about her ex and how she has to see him at the bank and all this personal upset ex-girlfriend stuff. She cuts me off anytime I try to speak or change the subject right back to him. A day later I get a text about how I didn't do any talking and I was too boring to be anything more than just friends with. She got irate when I pointed out she would not allow me to speak and only wanted to talk about her ex-boyfriend when we have never once had a slow or boring conversation before meeting up. Let's go hunting. Can I have a gun? No, you don't get to have one. I'm never inviting you hunting again. You didn't shoot anything. You were supposed to catch them with your bare hands. We lived about 25 minutes from each other, so agreed to meet at the beach pier about halfway between. Before meeting, we had been texting and he seemed totally normal. I was already at the pier when he texted me saying he can't meet me there because his license is revoked and it's too far for him to walk. I should have just left then, but I agreed to meet him at a pizza place closer to him. I get there, and I'm standing outside when I see him, and quickly realize the pics from his profile were at least 3-5 years old. Homeboy looks like the dollar store version of himself. Greasy, looks like he hasn't showered in days, hair undone, holes in his shirt. I awkwardly give him a side hug and suggest we get a seat, and he says, "Oh, no, we're not getting pizza. Let's go to the park." I awkwardly say okay, and as he talks, I realize his gums and tongue ring are stained black from smoking. By this point, I am completely turned off and am just keeping up with formalities. So we get to the park and find a bench to talk, and before I can sit down, homie pulls me onto his lap, squeezing me and saying, "God, Bibigiral, you are so freaking cute." I awkwardly scooch away and try to get a conversation going. He pulls out his phone and starts texting for a few minutes, not really listening to me, before interrupting with, "Have you smoked? My friend is a plug. We could go back to my place for a bowl." I decline. Or, "Come on, Bibigiral, my place is just right there. We could have some fun, too." I decline again. Next thing you know, he pulls me close by the face and whispers, "You're so innocent," before broad tongue licking my face from chin to ear. Shell-shocked, I just sit there for a moment processing what the frick just happened as he keeps talking about weed before I decide to fake an urgent phone call and leave. He may have been talking about weed, but it was meth. He just said weed instead. That's tweaker it. You're honestly probably not wrong. I think you went on a date with a homeless tweaker. He mentioned living with his mom, so maybe just a normal tweaker. Person shrugging. Not my story, but I knew a guy who had a Freudian slip, more dark side Kermit, bad enough that it ruined everything. I was told this by him after he got home and suffice to say he was like, "Why the frick did I say that?" Date had been going well, and they were walking back to a bus station. They passed a creepy alley, and she said something to the effect of, "Wow, I would not like to go down that alley," to which he responded, "I imagine you are very rapeable." Suffice to say, she ran for the hills and he was mortified. He very much was not a creepy person and had no clue why the hell he said that, nor has he, to the extent of my knowledge, raped anyone. But Christ almighty, do I agree with the girl's decision to run. Jesus. You might actually find her on this thread, LMAO. A female friend of mine was on a date with a guy and out of nowhere he says, "Don't worry, I won't rape you or anything." Just totally out of nowhere. She was like, "Well, I wasn't worried before." Some people are just freaking weird, man. This girl I matched with just messaged to troll me. I was like, "Hey, what's up?" and she was like, "Don't talk to me unless you plan on fricking me with your 9-inch dong." I forgot what my reply was, but she obviously never messaged back. Then a week later I'm getting McDonald's and this girl was the one who handed me my food. She recognizes me instantly and just had this total look of fear in her eyes. I walked out of there so quick. That poor girl thought I purposely sought her out to confront her or something. This is like that feeling when you're walking to a parking spot and you manage to accidentally follow a stranger to the car next to yours. First date. We went to see a movie. She brought her sister along, without consulting me first, and I somehow ended up paying for both of their tickets. Bit of a doormat. Old me. We went to see Star Wars: The Force Awakens. Turns out, neither of them had seen a Star Wars film before, nor had any idea at all what was going on. Awesome. Date ended at McDonald's after the movie with 1 hour plus of her eating fries one at a time, and her sister talking it about basically everyone at her work. To this day I'm not sure what that date was even about. There was no second date. It kind of sounds like you were just there free at ticket bro. It's happened to me before too. She was a cute girl. We got burritos. She spent the whole time on her phone while I was trying to get to know her. She never even cared to ask what my name was. I got kinda snappy halfway through the date and said, wow, you really love your phone, huh? Then she even casually mentioned I wanna get another burrito for later, but I don't have the money. Then I said that sucks and then left her at the restaurant. I felt so disrespected. Same, but I left before the check came, because I saw her Snapchat her friend more free it and just spent the entire date on her phone. I said I was going to the bathroom and just walked out. I even drove us there. She messaged me later, why the frick did you leave me? You all piece of it. I had to pay for everything and then get an Uber home. I replied with LOL. I went to his place and we hooked up, but after he goes, so you wanna know what I'm really into? And I was like sure, and then he grabs my foot. I have a really irrational fear of people touching my feet, so I ran the hell out of there anyway. I get to the living room on the way out and it turns out to be his parents' house, and I look at his mother and see she was my old therapist. Plot twist. It was all a setup by your old therapist as a means of exposure therapy to help you overcome your fear of people touching your feet. Fresh off a breakup on campus. Match with this really good looking girl who is talking pure filth. Obviously I'm just an idiot with a hurt heart, so I don't question much. Head over to her place a few days later. She insisted I come over on a certain day at XX o'clock. Usually I would have been sketched out, but it was the middle of the day on a B1G10 campus. What exactly could go that south? Half hour and her husband came home. I was being used in revenge plot. No more Tinder. I'd like to hear the rest of the story. What was she seeking revenge for? What did he do when he saw you? 3 of them played Uno together. No. He gave me my first kiss. I didn't hear from him for 2 days. On the 3rd day he texted me that he had been arrested. Haven't heard from him since. This is sad, but probably the lightest reply here. She smoked some meth. Her dogs ate my wallet. This guy asked me if I would be interested in dating his dad. Pretty sure that guy was a catfish of said dad pretending to be guy. Probably. The message he sent me was so weird. Don't leave us hanging. What was the message? This was a few years ago, so my memory is a little fuzzy. Something along the lines of, hey, my dad looked over my shoulder when I was checking out your profile. He wanted me to tell you that he thinks you're really cute. He's been really lonely lately. Would you be interested in going out with him? He's in his 50s. Here's a pic of him. Definitely was the dad. Met up with a Tinder girl at Dave & Buster's. She brought me there for a freaking pyramid scheme sign-up presentation. Guess I respect the hustle. Ugh. Happened to me in college, but this was in the early 90s, so no Tinder obviously. Met this attractive girl on campus. We had coffee, then a lunch. Nothing ever physical, but she seemed into me. One day she calls me, asks me to come by her office. I'm thinking weird, but okay. I go. She meets me and she brings me in this room, and there's about 10 other guys around my age all sitting around this conference table. We're all looking at each other with these what the frick expressions on our face. Then the girl comes back in with her boss and the sales pitch started. I'm just loving the scene of a room full of guys all slowly coming to the realization that they've been honeypotted to a pyramid scheme presentation. This actually wasn't all that uncommon back in the 90s. MLMs were scum then too. This one made me laugh. You'll just get up and leave, or... Me and a girl agreed to a hookup. This was a few years ago. We did the traditional swap nudes beforehand to make sure we both liked what we saw. And she shows up to my place 5 months pregnant. I asked how the frick she hid that stomach and she said, hey, you only asked to see my tits and ass. You never asked for a full body, touche. But frick you. Can't get her pregnant. LOL, literally what my roommate at the time said. Met a guy, decent conversation, smart, funny, mutual nerdy hobbies. We decide to meet up at the local gamer bar and play some games while having our first date. Get in, sit down. Dude has no teeth. Says a hack dentist told him they all had to be removed. Couldn't get dentures due to budget. Needed to wait for bone shards go fall out of his gums, etc. Proceeded to spit all over our food while talking, which granted, I knew he couldn't help, but if he can hide something this big from someone, what else could he be hiding? Plus I couldn't stomach the thought of making out with someone with no teeth. Jesus, this can't be real, lol. Are hack dentists really something we need to be worried about? The chain dentistry places are the worst offenders in recommending procedures that aren't necessary. Yes, The Atlantic wrote a long article about the duplicity of many dentists. Unfortunately, yes, absolutely. They get in trouble for eating entire mouthfuls on occasion while a patient is under. Strong contender for the most terrifying image of eating and dentistry. I went on a Tinder date several months ago around October and it went really well. Girl had a job, wasn't crazy, and was cute, so we decided to have a second date. The only thing was that the second date was at her Thanksgiving party, so she could introduce me to her friends and family, which I thought was a bit too early for. Anyways, I didn't have anything planned that day, so I decided to go. My job was to make the jungle juice for the party, and it consisted of the usual Everclear, Hawaiian Punch, lemonade powder and ice combo I've used throughout college. It worked wonders and everyone got really drunk. Near the end of the party, my date and her friends told me I did an amazing job on the drink. My date also mentioned that she really liked the fruit I added into there and that everyone at the party was trying to get some. For some reason, that did not sit well with drunk me, so I headed over to the alcohol canister to investigate. I grabbed my trusty ladle and started scraping the bottom of the canisters, and on one of the ladles I found some chunks of meat and pieces of ramen. That's when I realized that someone puked in the jungle juice. Well, it's time for me to leave this thread. Holy it. So much to unpack here. This girl has jungle juice for Thanksgiving? With her family? Like college party style booze, dispensed from a big cooler? And also at this Thanksgiving party, ramen was served? This is just, whoa. I mean, there's enough material there for an entire Ask Me Anything just about this party, to be honest. First of all, yes on the ramen. I want to hear more about that as well. Secondly, where was the punch located and how was this vomit ninja able to get away with it and not get caught? My face when reading the last line, oh lord. Well, I've only gone on one Tinder date. We talked for a bit and I agreed to pick her up at Starbucks. She looked nothing like her pictures, but I thought I should be nice and at least hang out with her for a bit. We went to her place and the entire house reeked like cat pee. Like saturated. Then as she proceeded to show me her massive collection of animal tail butt plugs, she screamed at her chihuahua and smacked it right on the nose, and without missing a beat just asks if I want to make out on the couch. I awkwardly sat down and pretended to look at my phone and made up that my grandma was dying so I could get the frick out. One of the many reasons I'm sad my Mimo passed away. Oh my god, my grandma died. Sorry, I need to go. Easy. Voice. And if she calls me on it later, I can honestly say, I didn't say she just died. I see this a lot, that they look nothing like their pictures, but I should be nice and not run off thing. But that's already a pretty big lie right up front. It reminds me of that video that went viral a bit back where someone wore a fat suit on dates they got from dating sites. Anyone that left was an AOLA somehow. I would turn and leave right then and there. That's already a big sign they're not on the level. Yeah, I've learned to dip every time that happens. You can't always tell either, because sometimes people just use old pictures rather than deceptive angles. Saying you know what, I actually changed my mind. Bi is the best thing to do. Matched with my BFF's fiance after the engagement party. Screenshots of everything and lost my BFF, because I don't play that. I was uninvited to the wedding. Marriage lasted 18 months. If I'm reading this correctly, you were uninvited to the wedding because you were a good friend and showed them that their fiance was on a hookup dating site. He thought that I would embarrass him at the wedding. It is possible, because he was stupid enough to not only match with his fiance's best friend, but also, once I told him off for it, he still wanted to hook up, and he was running for public office. Shocking. I know. She just wanted a baby and culturally had to be married when popping one out. So your friend didn't know? Why did your best friend agree to uninvite you? She did know. She wanted a baby. He was her opportunity to have the baby she was desperate for. She would do whatever he wanted. This just boggles me, because you have to be dumb enough to match someone that you know. This isn't actually my story. It's my mom's. After getting out of an incredibly long and unpleasant marriage, my mum joined Tinder. Stella wanted to get her groove back, and I was 100% on her team. I'm an adult. I can't emphasize enough. She was not looking for a long-term connection. Her work sent her out of state for a while, and everything seemed perfect. She's going to get her rando D and there's no chance of it getting serious. She's sending me screenshots of the guys she's considering. I'm giving her tips on safety. And then she picks a guy. I immediately tell her that he is not a wise choice. This guy's profile is 98% red flags by volume. Whatever. She's an adult. I literally cannot stop her. Somehow in the 4 hours they are physically together he figures out which flight she's taking the next day. He used that to find her final destination, and somehow even finds her home address. He uses the public tax information to find her full name, and from there hunts down her Facebook, and finds my dad, calls him on the phone, and dishes everything, sends him pictures and screenshots of convos. Then he starts sending my mum harassing messages that he loves her, but that he can't trust her. Ultimately my mum had to call the police. Edited to add. Oh, wow. My first silver. Thank you. What the frick is wrong with people? Not Tinder, but Match.com, and right in its infancy too long time ago when it was just weirdos doing online dating. I matched and met up with a girl. She was way hotter than me, like crazy hot, way out of my league. The date was going super well and we'd even made out a bit. Couldn't believe my luck. We decided that, as it was going so well, we'd keep it going and headed to a bar. We were getting cozy in a corner when a group of African lads came into the bar. I live in a very homogeneous white country to the point that would even be noteworthy, especially at the time. She got up off where we were sitting and began shouting abuse at the lads who came in, saying they didn't belong here and dropping the N-word several times. I felt like that moment in a horror movie where the camera zooms in on your face and the background zooms out. I just got up and walked out. She tried to call me the next day to set up another date. I just ignored her. Clearly freaking nuts. Too good to be true in the truest sense. My worst Tinder experience was pretty traumatizing for me at the time. I was a sophomore in college and she was a junior or senior at the same school. The first time we ever hung out, I went over to her apartment and we just watched some Netflix and hung out. Nothing crazy. I was thinking this chick is super cool, we may have something here. So I'll leave telling her I'd like to see her again if she's down. She told me she would love to and just hit her up whenever and we'll make some plans. We start texting, Snapchatting throughout the week and organize some plans for the following weekend. Out of nowhere, she starts sending me unsolicited nudes. Never once asked for them, and when we were hanging out the weekend prior, there was no sexual activity at any level. We quite literally Netflix and chilled. It caught me off guard, but I was more than cool with it. I'm a young college guy and this hot older chick wants to send me nudes after only hanging out one time? Say less. Fast forward to the weekend. She comes to my apartment and we're hanging out with my roommates watching something on TV. She asks me if she can stay the night, and after sending nudes to me all week, I kind of figured what was up. So in my head I'm like, frick yes. But I tell her of course, and to be polite I offer to sleep on the couch, because we've only known each other for all of about 2 weeks and have only seen each other in person one time prior. She tells me she'd rather me sleep in my bed with her, so I know it's on. We get to Netflix and chilling in my room and I make a move. We start to hook up and eventually wind up having sex. I wore a condom and finished inside of it and tossed it off to my side of the bed. As we're laying there after a few minutes, she gets up abruptly, comes around to my side of the bed and grabs the condom off the floor and runs into the bathroom. I'm a little confused, maybe a little concerned, but kind of brush it off. As I'm laying there in my bed I hear a loud crash in my bathroom. She yells frick. I ask if she's okay and get no response. I'm a little concerned, thinking this girl just fell in my bathroom and cracked her head open or something. I go to open the door and she is standing in my shower with one leg propped up trying to shove the condom up her pee after she flipped it inside out. I freak out, no clue what to do. She's clearly freaked out and probably embarrassed. I have no clue. I shut the door and she immediately comes back out, says she's gonna leave and I say sounds good. I never hear from her again. That would freak me out for months. About 9 or so yet. No. What if she ran and froze it immediately? That's a lifetime of fear, man. A lifetime. We don't have the whole story yet. Got that right, man, that's the fear of any man. She was doing the classic retrieve and conceive.